Hello everybody and welcome to English in the Afternoon. In this video, we'll be talking about the future tense. Unlike previous videos, where we discussed all parts of the past and present tense in separate videos for each, here we'll discuss the future tense in just this video. The reason for this is because the future tense is actually quite simple. First, we basically have two main ways to express the future. We can either use will or going to. When using will, we need to use it right after the subject, as in, she will park the car in the garage, or they will meet us at the entrance of the stadium, or Dr. Chen will see you now. As you can see, it's actually quite simple. You almost don't have to think. In the negative, we just need to place not right after will. So these sentences would be, she will not park the car in the garage. They will not meet us at the entrance of the stadium. Dr. Chen will not see you now. And if we want to make a question with these sentences, we need to switch will and the subject. So a question would look like this. Will you be joining us for dinner? Will Stephen be available to see me tomorrow? Will you please take out the garbage? If we want to use going to, it's a little bit different from will, because we need to use the verb to be before we say going to. As in, we are going to watch a baseball game. My company is going to hire new workers. I am going to buy a new car this year. You can see how to be changes with each subject, are, is, am, but going to always stays the same. In the negative, we just put not between the verb to be and the going to. So these sentences would be, we are not going to watch a baseball game. My company is not going to hire new workers. I am not going to buy a new car this year. And when making a question, we just need to switch to be with the subject and then follow it with going to. Are we going to visit the museum anytime soon? Is she going to let us play tennis at the club? Is the government going to change its mind on immigration? Also, when making future sentences with either will or going to, we often add adverbs in order to give a sentence more meaning. When using will, we have to put the adverb after will, as in, she will apparently need 3 hours to finish the job, or Australia will finally keep track of the shark population. When making a sentence with going to, we need to put the adverb between to be and going to, as in, his uncle is never going to fly again, or Stacy is eventually going to do her homework. We cannot use just any adverb with the future tense like this, but here's a list of some of the more popular ones you can. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between using will and going to? The difference is actually not that big. They're basically the same thing. But if we really want to make a distinction, the difference is if the action is planned or not. In other words, if we did not plan an action in the future, for example, taking out the garbage, or somebody asking you for a favor, or somebody asking you to close the door, or anything else that you did not plan to do but now decided to do, we use will. So let's say you're in the classroom and the teacher says, who wants to answer question number 3? You raise your hand and you say, I will answer number 3. In other words, you did not plan on answering it, but since the teacher asked, you volunteered. Or if your friend says, who wants to get ice cream from the store? You can say, I will do it. Again, it's an action that you did not plan, but just decided to do. However, when the action is planned carefully or when the action is already in motion, we use going to. For instance, you made a plan to visit South Africa, and in that case, you can tell your friends, I am going to visit South Africa. Or if somebody asks you what your friend Ali is doing this summer, and you know he wants to get a job, you can say, Ali is going to work this summer. Now, let's see what all this means. Let's imagine this line represents time. Here is the present, here is the past, and here is the future. When we use either will or going to in a sentence, we are basically talking about a period of time that will happen anytime in this box. It doesn't matter if it's going to happen 2 minutes from now or 2 years from now. We can see this with the sentences we already looked at, regardless if we use will or going to. She will park the car in the garage. My company is going to hire new workers. Dr. Chen will see you now. I'm not going to buy a new car this year. All of these sentences talk about things that will happen sometime in the future. It's basically that simple. Now, the slightly more complicated part of the future tense are the future perfect and future perfect progressive versions. Just like with the present and the past, the future has these. But the good news is that they are very rarely used. In the future perfect, we only use will to make a sentence, never going to. And in order to make a sentence, we need to use will, then have, then the past participle. So a sentence in the future perfect would look something like this. We will have finished painting the house by tomorrow. Or, my uncle will have made dinner by then. What these sentences basically mean is that an action will be finished by some time in the future. It is not finished now, but by some time in the future it will be. And the reason why we use the future perfect is because the action is important to what is happening right now. So when we say, we will have finished painting the house by tomorrow, it means that we are probably painting the house right now, and by tomorrow we should be finished. Again, we use the future perfect because we are connecting the present moment with something that will be important in the future. If we just used the simple future, we will finish painting the house by tomorrow, it would still mean that we are painting the house right now and that we will finish it by tomorrow, but it wouldn't really explain the importance of finishing the job. Same with my uncle will have made dinner by then. We say it in the future perfect because the dinner that my uncle will make will somehow be important to what is happening right now. For example, we might be working right now, and by the time we get home, my uncle will have made dinner. Again, if we just said this in the basic future tense, my uncle will make dinner, it would mean that at some point in the future, my uncle will make dinner. It will not be connected to anything else that is happening. In the future perfect progressive, a sentence would look like this. She will have been living in Montreal for 3 years next month. Or, I will have been driving for 10 hours by the next truck stop. As with the past and the present perfect progressive, we need to say have, then been, and then use the verb ing. The meaning of these sentences, however, mean that at some point in the future, an action will have been happening non-stop for a certain amount of time. When we say she will have been living in Montreal for 3 years next month, it just means that next month, some point in the future, will be full 3 years that she has been living in Montreal. Or in the case of the second sentence, I will have been driving for 10 hours by the next truck stop, means that when we get to the next truck stop, maybe here, it would mark the full 10 hours of me driving without stopping. Although the future perfect and the future perfect progressive are a little bit complicated, they are actually not very much used. You can sometimes get away with making sentences with just will or going to. Okay, let's do some practice. Complete the following sentences with either will, going to, or the future perfect or the future perfect progressive. Some sentences could have two answers, but use your better judgment to choose the correct one. You can pause the video here. I will give you a minute to complete the exercise. Number 1. We have decided we are going to get married this summer. Number 2. She's not going to study math just because you want her to. Number 3. Will you take the kids to hockey practice? Number 4. I'm sure Jackie will have graduated by the time Bobby starts school. Number 5. Okay, I'll go ask for directions. Number 6. I don't think she is ever going to find a condo at that price. Number 7. If nobody wants the muffin, I will eat it. Number 8. Next week, I will have been dieting for 6 full months. Number 9. Julia will have finished her homework by the time her dad comes home. Number 10. Why is everybody asking me when I'm going to get a tattoo?